The message came on a Tuesday. Every screen on Earth flickered at once. TVs, phones, computers, even digital billboards in Times Square went dark for 3 seconds before showing the same image. A group of alien beings seated at a long table. Captain James Miller was in the shower when it happened. His phone screen lit up on the bathroom counter, showing creatures that looked nothing like humans. One had 6 eyes arranged in a circle. Another seemed made of living crystal. A third was basically a floating cloud with tentacles. "People of Earth," said the center alien, its mouth moving strangely around the English words. "We are the Stellar Council, overseers of galactic peace and order. Your species has reached a critical development stage. We now welcome you to the galactic community, under our guidance." Miller, dripping wet with a towel around his waist, stared at his phone. 20 years in Earth's United Space Forces hadn't prepared him for this. The alien continued. "For safety and stability, all emerging species must follow the Galactic Accords. These rules ensure peaceful development." Another alien slid forward. This one looked like a giant praying mantis. "The accords are simple. No warship may exceed 300 meters in length. No weapon may use antimatter. No shield may block tachyon scans. No drive may exceed Council-approved light speed limits." The list went on. Miller's military mind quickly saw what they were doing, making sure humans stayed weak, controllable. "These rules are for your protection," said the crystal alien. "We will begin inspections next month. Compliance is mandatory." Then the screens returned to normal, leaving 8 billion humans in shock. 3 days later, Miller sat in a room deep beneath Washington, D.C. The table held only 10 people, the most powerful on Earth: presidents, prime ministers, military chiefs. "They're lying," said the Secretary General, an older woman with steel-gray hair. "Our deep space probes picked up transmissions years ago. We've been translating them in secret." She pushed a tablet toward Miller. On it was a partial translation of alien communications. "The Stellar Council isn't protecting anyone," Miller said as he read. "They're making sure no one can challenge them." "Exactly," said Admiral West, Miller's direct superior. "They've done this to 17 other species we know of. Keep them weak, dependent, and harvesting resources for the Council." Miller looked up. "Why am I here?" "I command a space station, not policy." The room went quiet. Finally, the president of the United World Alliance spoke. "Because, Captain Miller, we're going to break their rules, and you're going to help us." Miller raised an eyebrow. "How exactly?" A scientist at the end of the table, Dr. Laura Thompson, the famous physicist, opened a briefcase and projected a hologram into the center of the room. "By building this," the hologram showed a ship unlike anything in Earth's fleet, strange, modular, with systems Miller didn't recognize. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "A warship," Thompson said, "but one that technically follows every single rule while breaking their spirit completely." Miller stood and walked around the hologram. "Explain." Thompson pointed to different sections of the ship. "They limit size to 300 meters. "Fine. Our core vessel is exactly 299.9 meters. But it's designed to link with independent survey craft that just happen to connect into a larger structure." Admiral West joined in. "They ban antimatter weapons. This uses focused gravity pulses, not technically weapons at all according to their definitions, but they can tear a ship apart. The shield technology," Thompson continued, "doesn't block tachyon scans. It redirects them, showing whatever we want them to see." Miller was impressed but cautious. "They'll see through this." "Maybe eventually," the Secretary General said, "but their arrogance is our advantage. They think we're primitive. They won't expect us to find loopholes so quickly." The President stood. "Captain Miller, we're promoting you to lead this project. You'll select your crew and oversee construction in the asteroid belt, away from their inspections." Miller looked at each face around the table. This could start a war. "They've already started one. Admiral West said quietly. They just don't want us to notice until it's too late. 2 weeks later, Miller floated through the hollow center of asteroid KB 372, now codenamed Forge. Engineers swarmed around him, converting the rock into both a shipyard and the mother of all hiding places. Captain, got a minute? Engineer Kate Wilson pushed off a wall and glided toward him. Her red hair floated around her head like fire. Despite being only 32, she was Earth's best ship designer. "What's the problem, Wilson?" Miller asked. "Not a problem. A solution." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I figured out how to disguise the power core. Council rules limit energy output, but they measure in steady-state readings. If we pulse the core, microsecond bursts, we can generate 5 times the allowed power while their instruments show compliance." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Good work. How's the modular assembly coming?" "That's the best part," Wilson said, pulling up blueprints on her tablet. "Each section looks like a mining vessel or research probe, completely innocent, but they connect like puzzle pieces." Before Miller could respond, alarms blared throughout the asteroid. "Proximity alert. Council ship approaching," came the call over the comms. Miller's blood ran cold. "How? We're not even on their inspection schedule." "Unknown, sir," replied the security officer, "but they're requesting access for a routine survey." "Hide everything," Miller ordered. "Wilson, wipe your designs. Everyone into their cover positions." As crew scrambled to conceal their true work, Miller straightened his uniform. They had prepared for this possibility with a cover story. Forge was merely a mining operation. Through the viewports, Miller watched the alien ship approach. It resembled a giant silver horseshoe with pulsing blue lights, far larger than anything humans were now allowed to build. "Remember," Miller told his crew as they prepared to receive visitors, "we're simple miners, confused about these new regulations, eager to comply." The council inspector that emerged from the ship stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like polished bronze. 2 junior aliens flanked it, carrying scanning devices. "I am Observer Kelth," it said, voice rumbling. "We detected unusual energy signatures from this asteroid. Explain." Miller stepped forward with a practiced look of nervous respect. "Welcome, Observer. We're testing new mining techniques, still learning the proper power levels under your generous guidelines." The alien's eyes, 3 of them, arranged vertically, narrowed slightly. "I see. A tour, then." For 2 hours, Miller led the aliens through carefully prepared areas of the asteroid. Engineer Wilson and others played their parts perfectly, bumbling humans just trying to understand complex alien rules. When they reached the sealed door that led to the actual shipyard, Miller's heart pounded. Their entire deception could unravel with one scan. Observer Kelth paused at the door. "And this area?" "Storage," Miller said quickly. "Mostly empty now as we've used most materials." The alien raised its scanner, pointing at the door. Miller fought to keep his face neutral. Then, surprisingly, the alien lowered the device. "Your operation seems primitive but compliant," Kelth said. "Continue your mining. We will return in 30 standard days for formal inspection." After the aliens departed, Miller gathered his senior staff in the now secure command center. "That was too close," Wilson said, still pale. "And too convenient," added Security Chief Ramos. "They came straight to us, before official inspections even start. Someone tipped them off." Miller nodded grimly. "Which means we have a leak, either here or in command." He walked to the viewport, watching the alien ship shrink into the blackness of space. Double security, restrict communications, and Wilson, accelerate your timeline. We don't have the luxury of time anymore. He turned back to his crew, determination hardening his features. "The council thinks they've seen simple miners today. Let's show them how wrong they are." As the crew dispersed to their duties, Miller stayed at the viewport. Beyond the asteroid belt, Past Mars, Earth shone like a blue jewel. "We're coming for you," he whispered to the departed alien ship. "And you won't see us until it's too late." 3 months after the surprise inspection, Forge asteroid hummed with activity. The outer shell still looked like a mining operation, but inside was a different story. Captain Miller floated down the central shaft, watching hundreds of workers build something no human had ever attempted before. The skeleton of their warship, officially named Defiance, was taking shape. "Captain, you need to see this," Engineer Wilson called from a side tunnel. Miller changed direction, pushing off a handhold to glide toward her. Wilson had dark circles under her eyes. Like most of the senior staff, she had been working 20-hour days. "Tell me it's good news," Miller said. Wilson's tired face broke into a grin. "Better than good. Follow me." She led him to a lab where physicist Tom Reed was bent over a workstation. Reed was thin, with wild gray hair, and the distracted look of a man whose mind was always 5 steps ahead of the present. "Show him," Wilson said. Reed looked up. "Captain, perfect timing. Watch this." He pressed a button, and a small metal ball rose from the table. It hovered, surrounded by a faint blue glow. "Is that the shield prototype?" Miller asked. "Not just any shield," Reed said proudly. "A council legal shield." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "The Accords say we can't block tachyon scans," Wilson cut in. "And we're not. Watch." She picked up a handheld scanner and pointed it at the ball. The screen showed not a ball, but what looked like a small communications relay. "Illusion?" Miller asked. "Better," Reed said. "Redirection. The shield doesn't block scans. It processes them and sends back false data. Technically, we're fully transparent to scanning. We're just controlling what they see." Miller reached out to touch the hovering ball. His finger passed right through the blue glow, but he felt a strange resistance, like pushing through thick honey. "And as a bonus," Wilson added, "it stops physical attacks too. It doesn't block energy weapons. It absorbs and redistributes the energy." Again, technically legal under their wording. Miller nodded slowly. "How big can you make it?" Reed and Wilson exchanged looks. "Ship-sized," Reed said. "Maybe bigger with enough power." For the first time in months, Miller felt real hope. In another section of the asteroid, Miller met with Chief Ramos in a small, secure room. "We found your leak," Ramos said without preamble. He projected an image of a young technician, Mark Davis, communications specialist, been selling information to a middleman who passes it to the council. Miller studied the face. "How did you catch him?" "We've been feeding different bits of false information to different sections. When the council showed special interest in our power systems, exactly what we told Davis's section we were working on, we had our answer." "Have you picked him up?" Ramos shook his head. "Not yet. With your permission, I want to use him." Miller understood immediately. "Feed him lies." "Exactly. Make the council look exactly where we want them to look." "Do it," Miller ordered, "but keep a close eye on him. First sign he suspects we're onto him, bring him in." 2 weeks later, Miller stood before the ship's command core, a spherical room packed with technology that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. "It's ready for testing," Wilson said, joining him. The core would eventually be the brain of the Defiance, controlling its modular systems. For now, it was connected to a simulation rig. "Run the battle sim," Miller ordered. Wilson nodded to a technician. Screens around them lit up, showing a virtual space battle. A human-sized ship, the Defiance, faced off against 3 larger council vessels. The simulation began. The alien ships moved with textbook precision, exactly as intelligence suggested they would. They surrounded the smaller human vessel, weapons charged. Then something unexpected happened. The simulated Defiance split apart into 5 separate sections, each still under the size limit. The alien ship's targeting systems faltered. unable to lock onto the suddenly multiplied targets. "What's happening?" Miller asked. This wasn't in the design specs. Wilson looked as surprised as he was. "The AI is improvising. We gave it all the council restrictions and told it to find solutions. I think it's creating new tactics on the fly." On screen, the Defiance components were moving in perfect coordination, striking from multiple angles. The simulated council ships couldn't adjust fast enough to the unconventional attack pattern. Within minutes, the simulation ended with all 3 council ships disabled and the Defiance intact. The AI figured out we could use rapid separation and coordination as a battle tactic, Wilson said, voice filled with wonder. "It's learning." Before Miller could respond, alarms blared throughout the asteroid. "Council ships approaching. 3 vessels. Call the voice over the comms." Miller's blood ran cold. They shouldn't be back for inspection for 2 more weeks. "Someone tipped them off," Wilson said. "Davis?" "Maybe." Miller activated his comm. "Ramos, status on our leak." "Davis is contained, sir," Ramos replied. "Has been for 12 hours. This isn't him." Miller turned to Wilson. "How fast can we move the Defiance components out of sight?" "We can't," she said, face pale. "Major systems are mid-installation. We'd need at least 6 hours to hide everything." Miller made a quick decision. "Initiate protocol blackout. All personnel to emergency stations." Throughout the asteroid, lights dimmed as power was redirected. Hidden panels slid into place, covering the most sensitive areas. Workers rushed to predetermined hiding spots. "What's protocol blackout?" Wilson asked. "Our last resort," Miller said grimly. "We've hollowed out tunnels in the outer shell of the asteroid. We're going to hide the ship and crew there and vent the main chamber to space. Make it look like there was a catastrophic accident." Wilson's eyes widened. "That's insanely risky. Less risky than being caught now." Miller guided her toward an escape tube. "Get to the backup control room. I need you ready to manage power if they start scanning deeply." As crew scrambled to positions, Miller made his way to the main airlock. Through the viewport, he could see the council ships approaching, larger than before, bristling with what were clearly weapons. This wasn't an inspection. It was a raid. Miller's comm crackled. "Exterior crews secured, sir. Main chamber ready for venting." "Do it," Miller ordered. A series of muffled booms echoed through the asteroid as explosive bolts triggered, blowing debris into space along with a carefully calculated amount of atmosphere. From the outside, it would look like a devastating accident. Miller stepped into a pressure suit and prepared to meet the aliens at the airlock. He would play the part of the sole survivor, trapped in the command module when disaster struck. As the first council ship docked, Miller took a deep breath. Every human on the asteroid was now depending on his ability to lie to the aliens. The airlock cycled. The same observer Kelth from the previous visit stepped through, now flanked by what were clearly soldiers. "Captain Miller," the alien said, its 3 eyes narrowed. "We received information about illegal weapons development. Explain the destruction we just witnessed." Miller put on his best expression of shock and grief. "A terrible accident. Pressure system failure. Most of my crew. They're gone." As Kelth studied him, Miller realized this performance might determine the fate of not just their project, but possibly humanity itself. "Show me everything," the alien demanded. Miller nodded sadly, thinking of the ship and crew hidden just meters away behind false walls. "Of course. There's not much left to see." 2 days after the Council's raid, Miller sat in what remained of Forge's command center. The aliens had spent 18 hours searching the asteroid, scanning every accessible area for signs of illegal weapons. Miller's deception had worked, barely. Observer Kelth had accepted the accident story, but not without suspicion. The alien had left behind small monitoring devices, which Ramos's security team had immediately detected and isolated. "We can't stay here," Miller told his gathered officers. "They'll be back with better scanners." Engineer Wilson nodded. The good news is the Defiance is about 70% complete. The core systems all work. Can it fly? Miller asked. Yes, Wilson replied. But we're missing most of the outer hull sections and half the weapon systems. Physicist Reed cleared his throat. The shield generators are operational, though, and the modular connection system works in simulations. Miller made his decision. We launch in 12 hours. Pack up essential equipment and personnel only. The room erupted in protests. Sir, we need at least 2 more weeks. Wilson started. We don't have 2 weeks, Miller cut her off. Council reinforcements could arrive any day. We leave now or lose everything. 11 hours later, the heart of the Defiance hummed with power. From the outside, it looked incomplete, a central core with strange connection points, and only 3 of its planned 12-module sections attached. Miller stood on the bridge. Around him, a skeleton crew of 50 worked at stations designed for 3 times that number. All essential personnel aboard, Ramos reported. The rest are evacuating to the backup base on Mars. Diversion team ready? Miller asked. Yes, sir. They'll trigger the explosives as soon as we clear the asteroid belt. Should look like the remainder of Forge self-destructed from further damage. Miller nodded. Wilson, status. Engineer Wilson's voice came over the comm from the engine room. Main drive green. We're running at 30% capacity to stay under Council energy detection limits. That's enough for now, Miller said. Departure sequence. Nice and easy. We're just a salvage vessel removing debris from the accident. The ship trembled as its engines engaged. Slowly, the Defiance backed out of its birthplace, the asteroid that had hidden it for months. On the main screen, Forge grew smaller. Miller felt a pang of regret for what they were leaving behind: equipment, research, and years of preparation. But they had the one thing that mattered: their ship. Sir, the sensor operator called. Council patrol ship detected at the edge of the belt. They're changing course to intercept. Miller tensed. Time to intercept. 20 minutes at current speeds. Too soon for their planned diversion. Options? Miller asked. Wilson, who had joined him on the bridge, pulled up a display. We could try to hide behind one of the larger asteroids, but their sensors would probably pick us up. We could run, suggested Ramos. Full power to engines. See what this ship can really do. Miller shook his head and confirmed we have something to hide. No. He studied the tactical display, thinking. What about the modular system? Is it working? Wilson's eyes widened. Yes, but we only have 3 sections attached. We haven't tested disconnection and reconnection in real conditions. First time for everything, Miller said. Here's the plan. We split the ship. Each section takes a different route out of the belt. They can't follow all of us. The core section will be vulnerable without the others, Ramos warned. That's why I'll be on the core, Miller replied. Wilson, you take Section 2. Reed, Section 3. We rendezvous at the emergency coordinates in 6 hours. It was a desperate plan, but they had built this ship to do the impossible. 20 minutes later, the Council patrol ship entered visual range. It was sleek and predatory, 3 times the size of the complete Defiance, let alone its separated sections. Receiving transmission, reported the communications officer. A familiar face appeared on screen. Observer Kelf. Captain Miller, the alien said, 3 eyes blinking in what might have been surprise. I believe you were waiting for recovery ships at the accident site. Miller put on his best poker face. Observer, we managed to salvage this small transport, just moving it clear of the debris field. I see. Kelf's expression was unreadable. Our scans detect unusual energy signatures. Prepare for boarding and inspection. The transmission cut. They're powering weapons, reported the tactical officer. Miller's jaw clenched. Initiate separation sequence. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. With a series of mechanical clanks, the Defiance split into 3 distinct vessels, the core and 2 auxiliary sections. Each was just under the Council's size restriction. All sections, evasive patterns, Miller ordered. No weapons. I repeat, no weapons. On screen, the Council ship hesitated, clearly confused by the unexpected maneuver. Then it adjusted course, focusing on the core section where Miller remained. "They're locking weapons on us," the tactical officer reported. Miller smiled grimly. "Engage the shield." A blue glow surrounded the core vessel as Reed's revolutionary shield activated. Not technically a defensive weapon under Council definitions, just an energy redirection system. The Council ship fired. A beam of intense energy struck the shield and vanished. "Shield holding," reported the tactical officer. "Energy being absorbed, and, sir, the redirection system is charging our weapon capacitors." Miller leaned forward. "They're giving us power. Use it. Activate the gravity pulse." This was the moment of truth. Their main weapon wasn't an energy beam or projectile, but a focused gravity wave, not classified as a weapon in the Accords. The front of the core ship pulsed. An invisible wave rippled through space, striking the Council vessel. Metal groaned as localized gravity increased 1,000-fold, crushing part of the alien ship's hull. "Direct hit," the tactical officer reported, voice filled with awe. "Their weapon systems are offline." On the screen, the Council ship listed to one side, emergency lights flashing along its damaged section. "Send a message to Observer Kelth," Miller ordered. "Tell him the energy redirection system on our salvage vessel seems to have had an unexpected interaction with their weapons. Offer our apologies." A smile spread across his face as he added, "and offer assistance." The bridge crew stared at him, then broke into laughter. "Sir," said Ramos, "the other sections report clear paths to the rendezvous point." Miller nodded. "Set course to join them. And send a tight beam message to Earth. Tell them the Defiance works." As the damaged Council ship fell behind them, Miller gazed out at the stars. They had just engaged in the first combat between humans and the Stellar Council, and won. But he knew this was only the beginning. They had revealed their hand. Now they needed to complete the ship before the full might of the Council came looking for them. "Full power to engines," he ordered. "We have a ship to finish building." The core vessel accelerated away from the asteroid belt, leaving behind the wreckage of humanity's first victory against their would-be controllers. In the silence of space, no one could hear the cheers of the crew. But Miller knew the sound would soon echo across the galaxy. 1 month after their encounter with Observer Kelth, the Defiance drifted in the shadow of a gas giant in a system far from Earth. The ship looked different now. The crew had worked tirelessly to build additional modules, improving its capabilities while maintaining the appearance of compliance with Council rules. Captain Miller stood in the newly completed observation deck, watching as strange ships approached. They were unlike anything built by humans or the Council races he had seen. "Are you sure about this?" asked Wilson, who had joined him. "They could be leading Council forces straight to us." Miller shook his head. The message was clear. They want to meet. They hate the Council as much as we do. The nearest ship was roughly cylindrical, with odd bulges and spines jutting out at seemingly random intervals. It had responded to the encrypted message the Defiance had broadcast, a message meant only for species suppressed by the Council. "First contact with a potential ally," Miller said quietly. "Let's not mess this up." The meeting took place in the Defiance's conference room. The alien delegation consisted of 3 beings that looked vaguely like tall, thin humans with pale blue skin and 6-fingered hands. They called themselves the Talari. "We watched the recording of your battle," said the lead alien, who had introduced himself as Commander Nexus. His voice came through a translator device with only a slight delay. "Impressive use of the Council's own rules against them." "We've been looking for weaknesses in their Accords for decades," Miller replied. "Found quite a few." Nexus nodded. "The Council restricted my people 300 years ago. We were developing teleportation technology they found. Threatening. Wilson leaned forward. You have teleportation tech. Had. Nexus corrected. They destroy our research facilities. Placed inspectors in all our shipyards. We still have the knowledge, but not the freedom to use it. Miller studied the alien. What exactly do you want from us? An alliance. Nexus said simply. Your ship. Our technology. Together, we could actually stand against them. We're just one ship, Ramos pointed out. The Council has thousands. Nexus's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. You are not alone in your defiance, humans. There are others. Many others. Over the next week, more ships arrived. Each belonged to a different species, all sharing the same story. Technological development, council restrictions, forced compliance. The Volith, reptilian beings with advanced propulsion systems. The wreck, insect-like creatures who had pioneered nano-construction before being shut down. The Kith, gaseous entities who existed partly in another dimension and understood spatial folding in ways humans could barely comprehend. Miller met with representatives from 12 different species. Each offered knowledge, technology, or resources. Each wanted the same thing: freedom from council control. In the Defiance's engine room, Engineer Wilson worked alongside alien engineers, integrating impossible technologies into the ship's systems. This shouldn't work, she muttered, watching as a Kith engineer manipulated a device that seemed to fold space around itself. It violates half a dozen laws of physics. Your physics, the Kith replied, its voice coming from a translator box. The Council restricted what you could learn as well as what you could build. Wilson processed this. You're saying our understanding of science is deliberately incomplete. All our understandings are, the alien replied. They give each species only pieces of the puzzle. Together, we have more. In his quarters, Miller reviewed reports from Earth. The situation was deteriorating quickly. After their encounter with the Defiance, the Council had increased their presence in the solar system. More restrictions had been imposed. More inspectors deployed. A knock at his door interrupted his reading. Enter, he called. Physicist Reed stepped in, looking more excited than Miller had ever seen him. Captain, you need to see this. Reed held up a small device. The Teleri showed me their teleportation principles. Combined with our shield technology, I think we've created something new. Miller raised an eyebrow. Explain. A targeted shield disruptor, Reed said. It creates a temporary window in any shield, including Council shields. Their ships are protected by energy fields we couldn't penetrate before. But this. He held up the device. This could change everything. Miller stood. Does it work? In simulations, yes. We need to test it in real conditions. You'll get your chance soon enough, Miller said grimly. Intelligence from Earth reports a Council armada is mobilizing. They're done playing nice. 3 days later, Miller called all ship officers and alien representatives to the command deck. The main screen showed a tactical display of the solar system. This is the situation, Miller began. The Council has assembled 50 ships to make an example of Earth. Their plan is to establish a permanent occupation force, put our planet under direct control. Murmurs of concern filled the room. We've all suffered under Council restrictions, Miller continued. Some of you for centuries. Earth has only experienced it for months, but we share the same enemy. He gestured to the display. The Armada will reach Earth in 6 days. That gives us time to finish the modifications to the Defiance and gather all Allied ships. I propose we meet them at Neptune, where we'll have room to maneuver. Commander Nexus of the Teleri stepped forward. The Council has never faced united resistance. They believe divided species cannot stand against them. Time to prove them wrong, Miller replied. As the meeting broke up, Wilson pulled Miller aside. Captain, I need to show you something. She led him to a cargo bay that had been converted into a construction space. Inside was what looked like a smaller version of the Defiance, about the size of a shuttle. What am I looking at? Miller asked. The breakthrough was the Kith spatial folding, Wilson explained, eyes bright with excitement. We've created a modular design on a scale no one thought possible. She touched a control panel. The small vessel began to change, unfolding into what seemed like impossible dimensions. It's bigger on the inside, Miller said, amazed. Much bigger, Wilson confirmed. Each section of the Defiance can now carry 5 of these inside, and each of these can split into 3 Council-compliant vessels. From one ship, we could deploy an entire fleet, Miller finished, finally understanding. Wilson nodded. A fleet that doesn't exist until we need it. Each component staying within Council size restrictions, but together they become the most powerful force humanity has ever created, Miller said. For the first time since leaving Earth, he felt real hope, not just for survival, but for victory. How fast can we build more? He asked. With the wreck nano-construction and Volith materials. Days instead of months. Miller nodded slowly. Begin immediate production. And send word to all our allies. It's time to show the Council what happens when you back too many species into a corner. As Wilson hurried off, Miller stared at the prototype vessel. The Council had created their own worst nightmare. They had given their victims a common enemy and forced them to become experts at finding loopholes. Now those loopholes would become a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The orbit of Neptune glittered with ice crystals and the faint blue glow of the distant sun. Hidden among the planet's many moons, the Defiance waited. Alongside it floated 20 ships from a dozen different species, all victims of Council oppression, all now united in common cause. On the Defiance's bridge, Captain Miller watched the tactical display as red dots appeared at the edge of the system. Council Armada detected, announced the sensor officer. 53 ships, heavily armed. Miller nodded. The intelligence had been accurate. Time to Earth orbit. At their current speed, 30 hours. Miller turned to face the assembled commanders, human and alien alike, who had gathered on his bridge for this moment. They expect to find Earth defenseless, he said. They expect us to follow their rules, even as they prepare to occupy our world. He paused. Let's disappoint them. Commander Nexus of the Talari stepped forward. The combined fleet stands ready, Captain Miller. Not just combined. Engineer Wilson added from her station. Transformed. She brought up a new display showing the modifications they had made to each allied ship. Using technology from multiple species, they had retrofitted every vessel with modular capabilities, similar to the Defiance's. Remember the plan, Miller said. We engage at the Neptune checkpoint. Fight defensively only. Our goal is not to destroy their fleet, but to demonstrate our capabilities. Force them to negotiate. Physicist Reed cleared his throat. The shield disruptors are ready. Each ship has been equipped with 3. Use them wisely. They're one-shot devices. Miller looked around at the determined faces, human and alien alike. The Council has ruled through division for centuries, he said. Today, we show them the power of unity. 6 hours later, the Council Armada approached Neptune's orbit. As expected, they slowed to navigate the planet's complex system of moons and rings, the perfect place for an ambush. The lead Council vessel was enormous, a dreadnought nearly a kilometer long. Observer Kelth's face appeared on the Defiance's view screen. Captain Miller, the alien said, 3 eyes widening in what might have been surprise. You are far from Earth. Just showing some friends around our solar system, Miller replied casually. Friends. Kelth's gaze shifted as his sensors detected the other ships emerging from hiding. Ah, you've met other malcontents. How unfortunate. Miller's expression hardened. We know what you're planning for Earth. It's not going to happen. Kelth made a dismissive gesture. You have, what, 20 ships? We have more than 50, each twice your size. Stand down and surrender the illegal vessels. The Council may show mercy. Illegal? Miller allowed himself a small smile. Every ship in our fleet complies perfectly with Council size and armament restrictions. Check your scans. The alien's eyes narrowed as he reviewed data off-screen. Indeed, each visible ship was just under the 300-meter limit. Regardless, Kelth said, "You will disperse or be destroyed. You cannot win this engagement." "Funny thing about winning," Miller said. "It's all about how you define the rules." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "All ships, execute Phase 1. Throughout the combined fleet, vessels began to change. Components shifted, panels slid aside, and hidden sections emerged. Each ship, while remaining technically within size limits, reconfigured into battle formation. On the Council vessels, alarms blared as their sensors tried to make sense of what was happening. "Now," Miller ordered, "deploy the modules." The true genius of Wilson's design revealed itself. From each Allied ship, smaller vessels emerged, 3 to 5 from each. Within minutes, the fleet of 20 had become a fleet of nearly 100, each still Council-compliant in size, each armed with weapons that exploited every loophole in the Accords. "Phase 2, Miller commanded. "Defensive screen formation." The smaller vessels arranged themselves in a spherical formation around the original ships, creating layers of defense. The Council fleet hesitated, clearly confused by the sudden multiplication of targets. "They're powering weapons," reported the tactical officer. Miller nodded. "Let them fire first." They didn't have to wait long. The Council dreadnought launched the opening salvo, energy beams lancing out toward the Defiance. "Shields holding," reported Reed. "Energy redirection systems functioning perfectly." As they had discovered in their first encounter, the Council's energy weapons actually charged their own systems through Reed's revolutionary shields. "All ships," Miller ordered, "execute Phase 3. This was the moment of truth, the tactic they had never tested in combat. Throughout the Allied fleet, vessels began joining together. Smaller ships locked onto larger ones, combining their systems. Sections separated and reconnected in new configurations. From the Council's perspective, it must have looked like chaos, but there was precise planning behind every movement. When the transformation finished, the Allied fleet had changed again. Now, instead of many small ships, there were 12 vessels, each just barely larger than Council regulations, each combining technologies from multiple species in ways the Council had never anticipated. "Target the Dreadnought's weapon systems," Miller ordered. "Gravity pulses and shield disruptors only." The Defiance, now nearly twice its original size thanks to the addition of modules from Talari and Volov ships, led the attack. It fired a concentrated gravity pulse at the Council flagship, following immediately with one of Reed's shield disruptors. The effect was spectacular. The pulse passed through the temporarily disabled shield and struck the Dreadnought's main weapon array. Metal crumpled as localized gravity intensified 1,000-fold. "Direct hit," reported the tactical officer. "Their primary weapons are offline." Similar reports came in from other Allied vessels. The Council fleet, despite its numerical advantage, was unprepared for these tactics. Their rigid battle formations broke apart as they struggled to target the constantly reconfiguring Allied ships. "They're attempting to regroup," Ramos reported from his station. Miller nodded. "Time for the final phase. All ships, execute maximum compliance." This was Wilson's masterstroke, the ultimate exploitation of Council rules. Throughout the Allied fleet, ships separated once more. But instead of forming smaller vessels, they reconfigured into thousands of tiny craft, each barely larger than a shuttle. Each, technically, a separate vessel under Council rules. The Council fleet found itself surrounded by a cloud of small, fast-moving targets, impossible to track effectively. "Open a channel to Observer Kelth," Miller ordered. The alien's face appeared on screen, its composed demeanor now completely gone. "What is the meaning of this?" Kelth demanded. "This violates—" "Nothing," Miller interrupted. "Check your own regulations. Each vessel complies with size restrictions. Each weapon system falls within allowed parameters. We're simply cooperating. He let that sink in before continuing. Your weapons are disabled. Your sensors are confused. And this is just one system. Observer. Even now, our allies are spreading these techniques to every species you've ever restricted. Kelth's 3 eyes blinked rapidly. The Council will never. The Council will negotiate, Miller said firmly. Or the Council will become irrelevant. Your choice. After a long moment, the alien gave a small nod. I will convey your position